again, this is It's Getting Better All the Time, mental health outreach. And we're talking about, is religion, spirituality good for your health, part 2. And we've spent some time talking about how the positive aspects of religion and spirituality.
Right.
And now we're looking at some of the negative aspects. And one of the things we talked about, a religion or spirituality that makes us believe that God is always out to zap us, is not a good thing. Feeling abandoned and feeling sinful. And we made the point how, sin is a good thing. Feeling sinful can be a good thing.
Yes.
But if that feeling doesn't draw us closer to God, you're talking about the grace of God, then it's not a good thing.
That's right.
Because if we go around feeling sinful and like we just not worth anything, then that's not a good thing.
And I've come to understand that even though God has forgiven us, a lot of people have not forgiven themselves. So they keep themselves in a condemnation mode, not able to move forward because of feeling condemned at all times.
And feeling sinful, if to use that word, is actually another aspect of God's love. Because that feeling lets us know that God still loves us and He wants us to make a change, and then we can move forward. So, that can be a positive thing. But if we get so stuck on it, and we're talking about condemned, then that's not a good thing.
And when I feel sinful to the point that it causes me to have a broken heart, okay, a repentant heart before the Lord, that's where the positive comes in. But if it's to the point like, I've done this and I'm just doomed, this is it, I'm never going to be able to, and God can't love me with me doing this, then yes, that's what we're talking about, the negative.
Okay. Another negative aspect of religion, spirituality, and I hear this all the time, and I always challenge people when they say this, but afraid to express anger or ask questions can negatively impact mental health if not resolved. You have people who are afraid to express anger towards God, or they're afraid to be real with God, or afraid to ask questions.
So, am I saying to someone that my God is not big enough, great enough, compassionate enough, loving enough to be able? He knows me inside and out. Okay, He knows if I have a temper.
Right.
Okay, He knows if I'm struggling with negative thoughts. He knows if I'm quick to speak out of my mouth and then feel sorry about it later. Are you saying to me that my God is not big enough to handle these things?
And again, we talked about negative thinking before, and then the negative aspects. That kind of stuff keeps you hopeless.
Yes.
Because if you get, I'm telling you, I've heard people say this before. It's okay to have a problem for 1 week, 2 weeks, a year, or 2 years. But the longer you have a problem, the more people. You may have a whole bunch of friends starting out, but as that years go on, those people begin to drift away, and they begin to, I call it, blame the victim. They begin to wonder what's wrong with you, and they start to withdraw from you. Okay, so I'm saying if you're in that situation and you have people withdrawing from you, and you have this mindset or this spiritual belief that makes you feel that you can't ask God questions, then you're going to feel stuck.
Absolutely.
Because who can you ask? But we want you to know you have a God that you can ask anything.
Well, you know what? I've come to understand that people have a tendency to put God on the same plane as people. Okay? And when I do that, if I use a person who's always beating me down as what my God is like, then no. I'm not going to have a positive image of Him. Okay? But when I come to the realization of who He really is, then and then only can I overcome these feelings that, oh, no, I can't. If I say that, if I tell God how I really feel about this, He's going to get me.
Like it's really a secret.
Right.
Yeah.
He said He know my thoughts. He said that my thoughts are as far from the east. The thoughts compared to His thoughts as far as east is from the west. He already knows that. Okay? If He knew, since He knows that, He told me to let this mind be in me, which was also in Christ Jesus. If all of my thoughts were going to always be great, He wouldn't have had to tell me anything like that. He would not have had to tell me to renew my mind. Okay? He would not have had to tell me, cast all of my cares on Him before, because He cared for me. And when I come to the point that I can't believe that God still cares for me in the midst of what's going on, that I'm saying God's alive.
And so we want people to know that it's okay to ask God questions, and it's okay to express your feelings. It's okay with that. Religion or spirituality that decreases feelings of self-esteem. Basically, it makes you feel worse. It's not a religion. It's not a spirituality or spiritual belief that's positively associated with good mental health.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
so it's definitely not.
If anything, it will cause the mental health to escalate.
Okay. All right. We're getting into some heavy stuff here, Ms. Kelly.
Whew.
Spirituality that places all of the responsibility for changes or actions on a belief system. Basically, faith without works.
It's dead.
Right. You're putting all of the responsibility on God, and you take no responsibility.
No. Now, some things that he told me to do. He told me to renew my mind. Okay? And he tells me to cast my care. These are things that he's told me to do. Okay? He didn't say he was just going to come and take my thoughts. Okay? He told me to cast down every imagination and high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. There are some things that I have to do.
And and that's a mindset that can lead to feelings of weakness, helplessness, and keeps people not really, because there are some people who don't believe that they can do better. And when you look at their life, everything in their life kind of says failure. Everything in their life says that they can't do better, because the government is going to do it. Somebody else is going to do it. My mother's going to take care of it. They never, they never think about, getting a job. Or they never think about taking care of themselves. I mean, it's just, oh, okay. I have to do something.
Yes.
But that's that response. That's that mentality.
Our God is so great that he's even said, consider the ant, O sluggard. The ant works. They prepare. Okay. They store up for the next season. Right. So, if an animal, he's given that ability to an animal that don't have a soul. What about us?
But I came to church though.
Faith without works, again, is dead. I could sit this bottle of water, and you're saying, I'm thirsty. I believe, by faith, God gonna quench my thirst. God gonna quench my thirst. God gonna quench my thirst. But I never reach over. I'm gonna die of dehydration if I don't get a stroke beforehand. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's be real about this stuff. No, we have a false concept in some instances of what we expect. Since he's so great, he can do. Okay. But then in that case, what am I going to do?
Positive spirituality will move you forward. Going back to our thoughts. Negative spirituality will keep us stuck. Because we won't do anything. Okay. Again, going back onto the other point we made. Spirituality that prevents us from acknowledging and acting on reality. And again, this is another one we see a lot. People will come in, they may have an illness, and well, God is going to heal me, therefore I don't need to take medication. Or they deny the fact that they're sick. Or they want to put their sickness on everything else but the fact that they're sick. Again, the reality is that you're sick. The reality is you need to take your medications. Those are realities. Also in some traditions.
Now we recognize, let me insert this, we do recognize that the medicine is not the healer, okay? But it's to aid in the symptom while God is doing the healing, okay? But let's take someone with high blood pressure or diabetes, okay? Because I believe God's going to heal me, does that mean that I can go out and eat all the carbohydrates that I think I can eat and steady gaining weight that is working against me? My arteries are getting worse, eating all the fried food that I want and doing whatever, but I'm still saying God's going to heal me. What sense is in that, Where is my responsibility in this part? He's given us certain guidelines as to how to eat healthy and what not to eat. Okay? So, but if I'm not going to do what I'm instructed to do by the doctors to help my health, then I don't need to be going to him in the first place.
Right. And that goes back to taking responsibility for your own actions. Okay. But when we talk about acknowledging and acting on reality, you know, there are some people. It's easier to put, again, the responsibility on someone else or something else. A lot of times when people have an illness, in some religious traditions, you know, they believe in the demonic realm. And when you look at from both the Jewish and as well as the biblical, I mean, they talk about that. But we realize that does exist. But for many people walking around, the bottom line is that you're just sick. These bodies get sick. There's a chemical imbalance, there's an imbalance somewhere in the brain, and for whatever reason, you'll be sick. Okay? So we have to acknowledge that reality. The reality is you're sick, you're going to have to do something about it, or not, and you're going to die quicker. You know, so again, it's just really, as opposed to putting all of the belief on responsibility on God, when He's already provided us with tools that we can take advantage of.
And coming to the reality, you know, some people would say, well, I asked God to heal me. He told me if I asked anything in His name, okay, I asked Him to heal me, and He did not heal me. Well, you know, he may not physically heal this body, but He can heal my attitude about what I'm going through, you know. And I'm not saying that don't be expecting God to you know, do any healing in the body, work any miracles and stuff, because we know He can. But like the Hebrew boy said, even if He don't, I know He's able, and that's where my satisfaction should be. That even if He doesn't, I know He can, but He'll teach me how to endure through this.
And it goes back to the next thing. Again, we're talking about religion, spirituality, does it help? And right now we're talking about some of the negative things, or the negative ways that spirituality can detract from positive mental health. A faith system that makes us, that believes that taking medication makes one less of a believer is not a helpful situation. Okay? Because if you need to take the medications, you take the medications. Okay? It doesn't mean that you don't believe God, because you have to take them. Belief that expressing a negative emotion equals a lack of spiritual, religious, or commitment. Just because you express how you feel doesn't mean that you don't love God or that there's something wrong with your religion or spirituality. You know, we're human. Even Jesus Christ on the cross expressed feelings. Okay. A faith in a religious or spiritual belief that does not lead to positive action is not helpful. Like we said before, a religious or a spiritual tradition that keeps you stuck is one that's not good for you. It's not one that's going to draw you closer to where you need to be. And the question, well, where do I need to be? You need to be, I need to be, all of us need to be on a path that's drawing us closer to the plan of God for our lives.
That's right.
I don't think no one wants to come to the end of their life and feel like they've just wasted their lives.
That's right.
Or have had a lot of regrets. You know, I could have did this, I could have did this. Because the reality is, there are some things that if we don't do now, we're not going to be able to do. People will say, oh, you can do it anytime. No. There's some things that you're not going to be able to do at 95 that you could have done when you were 25.
That's right.
Number one, you're just not going to have the strength.
That's right.
You know, you may be strong still, but you're not going to have the strength. The seasons, the whole, everything else around you is going to change.
That's right.
So the reason why it's so important that we challenge our thoughts, which we talked about before, why it's so important that we incorporate positive or healthy spirituality and religious beliefs into our lives is because we need to do something with our lives for God.
Yes, we do.
You know, having a mental illness, having an illness doesn't take away from that at all. Okay, now you were going to say.
And we're going to just have confidence in the fact that, number one, He made us, and He knows what's needed for each and every one of us. He knows what talents and things and what destiny He has for each and every one of our lives. You know, so what greater person to trust my destiny to than the Lord Jesus Christ, okay? Because I can think I've got it all together and my plans are this, I'm going to do this, this, and my whole plan can be blown out the window the next minute, okay? But if I recognize, and it's not that things don't happen in our lives, they do. Unexpected things do happen in our lives, but I still need to be able to trust God. So as you know, just like our children, you know, must depend on when they're younger, they depend on us for certain things in their life, and as they grow up, they begin to know how to be more independent. The difference being is the children learn to provide for themselves when they get to a certain age where they can go out now, they can go walking by themselves, they can go to the store, they can do whatever, they go away to college and all those things. In the midst of all that, I need to realize that without God, I can't do anything. So, you know, until my mindset is I'm His child. He knows what I need. He knows what destiny He has for my life. So I do need to be able to consult Him in what I'm doing. But when I get to that point that, you know, I'm afraid to communicate with Him, I've already put myself in a hindering fashion. Okay? And or I can't make any decisions about my own life unless somebody else make them for me. You know, then I've hindered my life right there. And that's one of those negative aspects, you know, that I shouldn't, you know, we say, well, go to God and pray, you know, in some religions and everything, but don't you make a move till you come and consult me first. When do I get to the point that I have my own personal relationship?
Well, I think you get to that point when you start thinking that way. You know, I think the thing is, there are some people who need somebody to sanction them, and as long as you think you need somebody to sanction you, you're always going to need that.
That's right.
You know, because the person that's sanctioning you is never going to say, well, you don't need that, or they may not do it. You have to get to the point that you realize that, look, I can think for myself. You know, I can make choices for myself. You know, because the bottom line is, it's between you, and your relationship with God. You know, not, you know, you and somebody else. And so the question is, I'm going to be held accountable, you're going to be held accountable for what you did with your life, you know, to God, not to the other person. You know, you can't say, well, you know, Michelle Kelly, I felt like I wanted to do this, but Michelle Kelly said I couldn't do it, and that's going to be an excuse. Because basically what you're saying is that, what I'm saying is that Michelle Kelly is more important than the God who called me.
Well, He's already told us that we should have no other God before Him.
But we do that when we allow other people to tell us what we should do. You know, that's what we're doing.
And we want to be sure that in what as we are seeking God, that we're seeking the true and living God. Okay, because anything that I'm in that does not point me to the true and living God, I need to reevaluate.
So again, we were talking about, does religion, spirituality help? And we started out looking at some of the research. We started looking at some of the positive aspects from the literature, and also some of the negative aspects. Now, we have a couple of comments just by asking people who have a severe mental illness to question, how does religion, spirituality, how does it help you? I think you have a few of those.
Yeah, and some of the answers to that was, it makes me hopeful, it helps me not be afraid, keeps me going, I feel happy. I know I can make it. I am not as bad as I was. Comfort in knowing that someone is there. Gives me joy. I have someone to talk to.
Okay. So when we look at the positive things that from talking to people who have a mental illness, and these are some of the things that they feel is important. You know, and when you look at the list, it's no different from a person without a mental illness.
That's right.
You know?
That's
But
right.
I think what's so important is, because you have a person with a mental illness, that extra support, that extra structure is so important.
So this goes back to what we said before, that a person may have a mental illness, but they still have feelings. They still have emotions. Okay? So this is what basically all of this that I've just read says, that they're still able to evaluate, such as we.
So when we talk about religion and spirituality in the lives of individuals with a mental illness or non-mental illness or negative life situation, there are definitely some positive aspects. We do acknowledge the fact that, just like anything, religion and spirituality can become a negative. You know, if it begins to be like the things that we read.
A hindrance.
A hindrance. But I think overwhelmingly it's something that we don't have to shy away from. I think it's something that we can encourage a person, you know, to believe however they believe in their area, what it does for them. I think that's the most important thing. You know, we're not, as long as it's not negative, as long as it's positive to them. They don't feel fearful about their belief. I think it's a positive thing.
So far and foremost, we want you to remember and to know today that God does love you, and give Him an opportunity. True people may have hurt you, have disappointed you, and we're saying to you today, let's get beyond that and accept that God is God, first of all, and then be able to move on in your life. Know that you have a God that will not leave you comfortless. He promised to never leave you nor forsake you, but to be with you always, even until the end of the world. He promised He could give you peace in the midst of a storm. Lets us know that the storms are going to come in our life. He also told us that there would be many afflictions in our life, but promising that He would deliver us out of them all. He did not say they wouldn't come. He said offenses must come. But we can have a comfort in knowing that we have a God that cares about us. We have a comfort in knowing that God so loved us that He gave His only begotten Son. Whoever believes in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life.
This has been